Good morning. I'm Hang Leto, the chair of the Professional Fiduciary Bureau Advisory Committee. I'm calling calling this meeting to order at 10 a.m. This meeting is being held on Wednesday, May 29, 2019, at the Department of Consumer Affairs located at 1747 North Market Boulevard, Sacramento, California, 95834. This location is open to the public and accessible according to the American Disabilities Act standards. Item number 2. At this time, I would like to ask Angela to call roll to establish a quorum.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start roll with Hangley Joe,
Present.
Wendy Hatch,
Present.
James Moore,
Present.
Kathleen Thompson,
Present.
and King G is absent, but with 4 members, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Angela. Item number 3, I would like to ask the committee members and the Bureau staff to introduce themselves.
Rebecca May, Bureau Chief.
Fred Chanyu, DCA Counsel.
Angela Quadra, Professional Fiduciaries and Program Analyst.
Kathleen Thompson, Supervising Court Investigator for Solano County.
James Moore, Professional Fiduciary in Sacramento and Solano County.
Wendy Hatch, Professional Fiduciary in Los Angeles County.
I'm Hang Leto, Finance Director of the San Francisco Labor Council. Okay. Would any members of the public like to introduce themselves? Thank you. So, item number 4, Rebecca, please read the Bureau's mission statement.
To protect consumers through licensing, education, and enforcement of the Professional Fiduciaries Act by promoting and upholding competency and ethical standards across the profession.
Any comment from the committee members? Okay. Any public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Hello.
Can you hear me? There it is. Hi, I'm Richard Calhoun. I'm here to comment on the mission statement. The mission statement implies that you actually try to protect the consumers. If you protect the consumers, why is the professional fiduciaries the only industry where the professional can use the client's money to defend litigation against themselves for malpractice? As a real estate broker, if I cause malpractice and have a client sue me, I have to use my own funds to defend myself, and I carry E&O insurance to do so. In the Professional Fiduciary Bureau, you allow your licensee to use that client's money to defend their actions against the litigation for malpractice. Furthermore, you allow that professional fiduciary to block the client access to their own funds to do the litigation, to do the offense of that litigation. There is no way that anyone can get any sort of protection in this state of California the way this Bureau runs the professional fiduciaries. That is wrong. You cannot give me any other profession where the professional can use the client's money to defend for malpractice.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Rebecca, for the reading out the mission statement. Item number 5, are there any suggested edits to the January meeting minutes from the committee members? Yes.
I have one question. You have marked that Barbara DeVries was absent. I don't think she was actually on the board during that meeting. I thought I replaced her.
She was still technically on the board. She had not been separated yet from the.
Thank you. Any additional suggest? No? Is there a motion to approve the minute?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 9th, 2019 meeting.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second that.
Thank you, James. Any discussion from the community members? No? Any public comment? So Angela, please do vote by roll call.
Okay, just to clarify, Kathleen, you made a motion. Is that to approve as written?
Yes, thank you.
So the motion is to approve as written and was seconded by James Moore. I'll start the roll call vote now. Hang Lido,
Yes.
Wendy Hatch,
Yes?
James Moore,
Yes.
King G is absent, Kathleen Thompson.
Yes?
With a vote of 4 majority, the minutes will be posted to the website as written.
Thank you, Angela. Item number 6, I would like to invite the Department of Consumer Affairs executive staff to present their update. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair Toe, Vice Chair Thompson. Karen Nelson, Assistant Deputy Director with the Office of Board and Bureau Services with the Department of Consumer Affairs. And thank you again for allowing us an opportunity to provide a brief update. You guys have been so generous with your time and giving us a slot to give you some brief news and activities with the department. So first of all, wanted you all, I think many of you are aware that Director Dean Garfilo had left his post as DCA's director on April 19th. Director Garfilo had been a friend and mentor to many of us at the department, and I know that we're not alone in expressing our gratitude to be able to serve under his leadership at DCA. We do wish him the best of luck as he starts his new chapter in his career. The governor's office is currently working toward identifying a successor, and DCA's executive team looks forward to working with the governor's office to ensure a smooth transition as we prepare for this new leadership. The department still plans to host a director's quarterly meeting with all executive officers and bureau chiefs this coming Monday, June 3rd, and it will be led and hosted by our Chief Deputy Director, Chris Schultz. With regard to technology updates, in January, DCA's Office of Information Systems, or OIS, announced the launch of DCA's Open Data Portal, a publicly accessible one-stop shop for licensing statistics and information where users can see trends and changes in licensing data going back 2 to 3 fiscal years. And this past month in April, OIS Data Governance Team announced the incorporation of enforcement and application data statistics. We're quite excited about this new feature that's now added onto our website. The public, members, anyone can really go up and take a look at all the boards and bureaus, the program statistics. So enforcement data, for example, will show complaints that's been received, case aging, and all of those things, and being able to, in real time, compare data from fiscal year to fiscal year. Similar to the application data statistics, you're able to take a look at the average application processing time of initial exam or license applications. And so I do encourage you all to take a look at that. Our OIS team has done a wonderful job in making sure that this data is accessible to all and usable. So I know part of your meeting materials are statistics, and perhaps the program then can take a look at that tool and then extract data from that and utilize it for your meeting materials in future. So the next item will be about our future leadership development program. I do recall mentioning this to you all before, but just a refresher, this is the program that has launched last year for us to grow the next bench of leaders here at the department. And on May 22nd, this year's cohort of 8 individuals graduated from the program. And over the past 8 months, participants have been developed by their mentors, exposed to pertinent qualities and characteristics of executive leadership, completed and presented a team project that directly impacts DCA as a whole, and networked with various internal and external leaders. And again, I want to thank Chief May for being an integral part of this program, being part of the steering committee. Your contributions to it is very much appreciated. And that concludes the department update for this time. thank you for your good work, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Okay, so any comment from the committee members? Okay.
Where do we actually find this website?
Can you say your name
Oh,
first?
Wendy Hatch, where do you find this website?
So it's the DCA website, dca.ca.gov, and there is a tab at the very top that says data. Go ahead and click on that, and then it will show the face of the open data portal, and you can filter by program and able to take a look at either licensing, enforcement, or application statistics.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a question. My understanding is 2019 is a mandatory training year for sexual harassment. Can you give us like just a quick reminder of what trainings we need to
Sure.
complete?
Oh, all the trainings. Well, 2019 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year, so that means everyone at DCA, including members, employees, will need to complete this training, even if it was completed last year. And then I'm happy to get in touch with you with other required trainings. Some of them happen every other year, some every 4 years. So I'm happy to go over that with you.
I'm Hang To, and so with that, the training gonna be in persons or online training?
So sexual harassment prevention training can be done online.
Can be-
So
okay.
we can share the link to Chief May and then make sure that that's distributed to you all.
Thank you. Any additional comment from the committee members? No? Any public comment? Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you.
Item number 7, I would like to invite the Department of Consumer Affairs Budget Office to present the budget update.
Chair Toe, Chief May, and board members, good morning. Thank you
Good
for
morning.
inviting me here. My name is Paul McDermott. I am the current budget analyst for the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau. I'm here to talk a little bit about the budget as it stands and also about the current fund condition. What I'll be talking about is 2 different documents you have. One will be one that has a green and yellow columns in here. This document here is going to explain from top to bottom how the budget stands. It's going to be the expenditures that we have to date, and it also have the projections as we project it to the end of the year, which is a little over a month away. And as we look at the budget, we look at the personal services and the operating expenses on equipment and everything else. This budget looks solid. We do a bottom line budget analysis, and we go through the whole thing and we look at the bottom, and we look at a positive number projected of about $48,000 or 9% of the total allotted budget. Very solid looking budget here. Good use of the funds by the chief, and we're very happy with where the budget stands. So we have no concerns as we look at it, and we look forward to many more years of a solid budget with the Bureau. The second document is going to be what we call our fund condition. It's just the black and white document here. But the fund condition, it states, if you look at it from top to bottom, you have your beginning balance, then you have your revenue and transfers, and then you have your expenditures. So your revenues are going to be your authorized revenue streams of which you bring in money through fees, through licenses and permits. And then you have the expenditures. And just like any business, we want to know what's coming in, what's going out. The bottom line, again, we do have a very positive number. We have revenues coming in about $817,000, with the expenditures about $586,000, with a positive net of $231,000. And right below that, you will see months in reserves of about 4.5 months, which is a solid category to have. And what that tells us that if everything breaks loose and all we have is the funds in this basically a checkbook, we can pay our bills for about 4.5 months. So solid, that's kind of where we want most bureaus and boards, any program we have, to be in that category. So all in all, the budget, the expenditures, the fund condition looks solid, and we have no concerns at this time. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Wendy Hatch, since I'm new to this,
Okay.
where the fees and fines that are collected, what category do you put them under on the income?
As far as on the expenditures,
No, on the income.
On the fund condition statement,
When a fiduciary is fined
right?
for an offense, what
Go ahead.
category do you put that under?
You want to go ahead and answer?
That would come under the other regulatory fees on the second handout, the revenues and transfers. It's the third one down, other regulatory fees.
What is the description then of the delinquent fees? So,
Delinquent fees would be if a licensee renews their license more than 30 days after the expiration, they have to pay a delinquency fee.
There's a increase in delinquent fees. Do you have any indication why?
So we do a projection each year. Correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but we project, and it goes by how many licensees we have as a percentage. As your number of licensees rises, there's going to be a rise in citation and fines, there's going to be a rise in delinquency fees and renewal fees. Everything goes up a little.
Okay. Any public comment? Thank you, Mr. McDermott.
Thank you.
Item number 8, I would like to invite the Department of Consumer Affairs Legislative Review Office to present the legislative update.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Alex Millington. I am an analyst with the Department of Consumer Affairs Division of Legislative Affairs. I'm a quiet talker, so hopefully I can get close enough to this microphone that it'll be sufficiently loud enough for everybody to hear. If you can't hear me, please let me know. I've heard
We
it
could
all
hear
my
you.
life that I need to speak up, so it won't be a surprise. This is the first time in the 2019 to 2020 legislative session, I believe, that I have had an opportunity to come before you folks to give you an update on pending matters in the legislature. For that reason, this might be a little bit more involved than you might hear at future hearing or future meetings this calendar year. And that's because this is the first time you folks might have an opportunity to hear about a number of these bills. I'll start off by just briefly describing the remaining dates in the legislative calendar for 2019. May 31st is the last day for each house to pass bills introduced in their house of origin. I don't want to seem too remedial, but bills are required to pass both houses, the Assembly and the Senate. So this deadline means an Assembly bill must pass out of the Assembly and a Senate bill must pass out of the Senate. June 3rd, committee meetings may resume. The legislature will take a brief break after the deadline and resume committee hearings on June 3rd. June 15th, the governor's budget bill must be passed by midnight. On July 10th, July 10th is the last day for second House policy committees to hear and report bills to the fiscal committees. What that means is a bill in each house must pass through at least one committee. Those committees are defined by subject matter, and there is another committee, the Rules Committee, which decides which subject matter committee a bill will be heard by. A bill might be heard by the Judiciary Committee if it primarily impacts the courts. It might be heard by the Business and Professions Committee if it's primarily related to the operation of businesses, and so forth. Bills that have a fiscal impact, i.e. they're going to cost money, generally have to go to a second committee, the Appropriations Committee, which is primarily concerned with evaluating the fiscal impact of those bills. So the July 10th deadline is the deadline for those fiscal bills to be passed out of their subject matter committees to be heard by a fiscal committee. 2 days later, On July 12th is the last day for the Second House Policy Committee to meet and report bills. That's a general flat deadline for all bills. So if a bill is not fiscal, it must pass out of those policy committees by that date. August 12th, the legislature will reconvene from its summer recess and will begin considering bills again. August 30th is the last day for fiscal committees to meet and report on bills. There's a parentheses there. It's called a suspense hearing. The Appropriations Committee will hear all bills that have a fiscal impact, and some of those that have a big fiscal impact might be put on what's called the suspense file for further consideration. The August 30th deadline is the last deadline for all of those fiscal bills to be heard and passed out of the Appropriations Committee onto the floor for a vote in the second house before it goes to the governor. September 3rd through the 13th, the houses will have floor session only, meaning that's all they do. Talk about the bills on the floor and determine how to vote on them. September 6th is the last day to amend bills while they are on the floor. September 13th is the last day for any bill to be passed, and the governor has until October 13th to sign or veto those bills that are put on his desk. October 13th is the last formal deadline on the legislative calendar, but I would also note that January 1st of 2020 is the presumptive implementation date of bills. So bills that are passed without specified implementation dates are presumed to go into effect on January 1st of the following year. So unless a bill says otherwise, it goes into effect on January 1st of 2020. The next part, 2019 legislation related to the Bureau. As it says here in the handout, there are not currently any bills that are directly related to the operations of the Bureau. Now, there's another section here that I've entitled Other Issues that deal with issues that may be of general interest to the Bureau, but there are not currently any bills related to the operations of the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau. Moving on to the next section, if you folks would like to hear a description of each bill, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, the information about each bill is in the handout. Unfortunately, I am not an expert in elder law, so while I'm certainly happy to field any questions that folks might have about those issues, I likely will not be able to give you any precise answers, but I can come back and give you an answer with further research. So I'll just move through these broadly. Before I came in today, I went ahead and took a look to make sure that these descriptions were up to date and that their location in the legislative process was current, and there are several bills that there's some additional information that I think might be useful. AB 473 was amended on May 7th to include very minor technical amendments to address, I think it was referring to a section in the bill. So it's a technical amendment to correct a cross-reference in that bill. It's not affecting what the bill is about. Moving on to page 2 of the handout, AB 1378 actually failed its first House Policy Committee deadline on May 17th and is now a 2-year bill. And you may see that phrase intermittently in this handout. The legislative session is 2 years in length. It's 2019 and 2020. Bills generally are required to meet a number of chronological deadlines to move them through the legislative process. And if they fail those deadlines, depending on the intent of the author, they may become what's called a 2-year bill. A 2-year bill is one that is, it's dead for this year. No further action can be taken in 2019, but it is allowed to sort of come back to life at the beginning of next year to avoid having to republish the bill. So any bill that's marked as a 2-year bill, that means that no further action can be taken on it this year, but it may be revived at the beginning of next year. So
I'm sorry to
Sure.
interrupt you. Kathleen Thompson. On that 1378, for the standby guardian, is it, do you know if the wording says that it's temporary pending a petition filed by somebody? Is there a sunset period on this appointment or this, I guess it's not an appointment, but designation?
I can pull up the bill real quick and take a look for you.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, just before I answer your question, can you repeat it to me?
Is it a temporary designation, or is it, guardianship is intended to last for as long as it's needed or until the child turns 18, or it's terminated? So is there an end date to this designation?
So looking at the text of the bill, it does not appear that the standby guardianship designation itself is limited in term. So it's not, and again, I'm not an expert in the function of, in this case, immigration or family courts, but while the designation may not by law have a limited duration, the authority of a standby guardian is limited to the duration in which the normal guardian is incapacitated. So they're on standby. They're a fallback guardian who would serve in a temporary capacity when the normal guardian is unable to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions?
Any additional questions from the committee members? Any public comment? No? Thank you, Mr. Milton.
Sure. Next, AB 1396 was amended on May 20th to clarify who may provide the courses defined under this bill. So this bill broadly would allow a court to mandate clinical counseling or anger management courses, and the bill was amended to specify who can give those courses. And it was also amended on May 20th to change who is directed to compile and publish in the courts a list of elder abuse prevention programs. The bill previously had directed the courts to compile and publish this list. The bill was amended on May 20th to direct local adult protective services agencies to compile and publish that list. The next item that has any sort of update beyond what is in the handout is SB 314, which is on page number 3. SB 314 has not substantively been changed, but the handout indicates that the bill is pending hearing in the Assembly Judiciary Committee. That Judiciary Committee meeting has been scheduled for June 14th. That's the only update to that one. And the only other update to the bills listed here is SB 496, which is also on page number 3. The handout indicates that the bill is pending a floor vote in the Senate. That bill has been voted out of the Senate and is now in the Assembly pending assignment to a policy committee. So just a quirk of the time in which the handout was produced. Since I wrote the handout, the bill's been voted out of the first house and into the second house.
Kathleen Thompson, maybe for the next hearing, could we get the specific conditions referenced in this bill? The very last sentence, it says if specified conditions are met. I'd be interested in knowing what those conditions are.
Yeah, sure, sure,
But-
absolutely.
Thank you.
Wendy Hatch with a question.
Sure, yes.
It's not with regards to these bills, but wasn't there a bill that we were going to be requiring to list on our stationery how to refer back to the fiduciaries in the Bureau?
That's a pending regulation.
Oh, a pending reg, okay, sorry, thank you.
Are there any other questions about these pieces of legislation? All right, thank you folks very much.
Item number 9.
Madam Chair, public comments.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Any public comment?
Chair and members, Jerry Desmond on behalf of the Professional Fiduciary Association of California, or PFAC. I was just going to add a footnote following Mr. Millington's report on the legislation on one particular bill, SB 303 by Senator Wajkowski. That is certainly accurately described in the handout. Just was going to note that as amended on April 30th, that measure is no longer of concern to PFAC. You know, we appreciate the efforts of Senator Wajkowski and the sponsors and proponents of the bill to protect conservatees and guardians, and that's in the highest priority for professional fiduciaries as well. And we think the measure, as it's now crafted, appropriately balances the protections as well as ensuring that there are still an ability to serve this population with court appointments. And we also appreciate the role of the courts in this matter as set forth in the bill as an appropriate recognition and acknowledgement. And just wanted to highlight that particular bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond. Any other public comment?
Yes, I'm Linda Kincaid with Coalition for Elder and Disability Rights, and we were the sponsors of SB 303. Looking back to your mission statement, which says that your mission is to protect consumers, SB 303 seeks protections for assets of persons under conservatorship. And I'd like to point out that conservatorship is the only profession in the world, as far as I know, that allows a service provider to seize the assets of a client and to use those assets to litigate against the client and litigate against the client's family. To my knowledge, there is no other profession in the world that can do that. Doctors cannot seize their patients' assets to litigate against their patients. A roofing contractor cannot seize the client's assets to litigate against the client. Only a conservator is able to do that. And so in keeping that conservators have this rather bizarre power to use a person's assets against the person and against their family, we would really ask for your support for SB 303 to help to protect some of the assets of conservatees from being pillaged by predatory conservators. With me is Venus Gist. SB 303 was introduced because of her mom.
Hello. As you know, I'm Venus Gist. I'm sure some of you are familiar with my name. I've been definitely communicating with the Fiduciary Bureau on a regular basis. Ms. Lowe, this is very personal to me because my mom was conserved by a fiduciary through the courts. Her name is Michelle Tiernan. And through that process, she was neglected and abused and basically financially
Can
raped.
you don't say the individual names? Just say your story, but not individual names. Thank
Got
you.
it, yes. And so if it was just me, you might be able to isolate me and say, oh, she's just talking, but it's happening nationwide. And it's really an egregious and predatory and greed that's going on in our nation right now with the elderly. We're talking murder, all in the name of the law. And I just want to make you guys aware of it. There's a human factor that is just missing, very inhumane, what's happening to our elderly people. And I just want to know if you're aware of it. My mother's income was taken, her CalPERS, her retirement, Social Security, without any communication, without any workability. Does this work for you? Does this not? How do you live? How do you eat? How do you buy your medical needs? When a conservator, we understand fees are due, we understand, but where's the communication? Where's the relationship? You conserve, that's the conservator's job, fiduciary, to conserve, not to just take. My family, we want retroactive pay. And right now, the situation is being investigated. And I think you guys should be aware of what's really going on with the conservators and the fiduciaries out there in the court system, with the judges and the attorneys, and the greed, because now it's about the money, it's about the assets, it's about what people have worked for generations and years, and now they can't pass this generational wealth on to their children because now the court has figured out a way to take it. And there's some pretty devastating stories out there from Southern California, from state to state, of what's happening. Why? Why have we turned to this? Why do we have to go to politicians like we're doing a meeting in their offices? And now we have to, share this information with them and make them aware so they can help us. We, the people, need some help now. Just fair. All we're asking is fair. Fairness. Be fair with us. Talk to us. Anything can be worked out with communication. We're all humans. We all matter. And just like you just had that baby, how precious she is to you, that's how my parents are to me. And they were mistreated through the system. Though we were in family conflict, it happens. Families are going to be in conflict sometimes. But it was taken advantage of by the judicial system, and that's what I have a problem with. They're there to be public servants, to serve, with oath and honor. And they're like a bank, just raping people, taking things, and not even considering the human factor that we have to survive.
And I think your mother nearly died.
And my mother nearly died under the conservatorship. She was placed in a substandard facility, left to decline and deteriorate. When I did speak with the conservator fiduciary, it was ignored. Legal assistant for seniors, I even got a doctor's notice saying, move Ms. Carter to a higher level of care, not boarding care, but to a skilled nursing facility. And the court wouldn't do it. She has dementia. She has high blood pressure, stage 4 kidney disease. She had edema in her feet. I have pictures of it. Her feet were so swollen like an elephant. I took her myself to the emergency and then was told that it was a waste of a trip when her blood pressure was up at 200 degrees, at 200, not degrees, but 200. It's really we've been in court for almost 2 years. And now my parents' money has been taken, how they are supposed to live day to day. And we took her out of the facility against the court order because she would have died in there, like many others, like Linda's mother. You know, she spent $2 million in court trying to save her mom and no justice. How does that happen in America? So can you please help us? You know, we're going as high as we can. If I have to get to Oprah, I'm going to Oprah. Because this is just, I've just had it with hearing these stories. I think that's it. It's just, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to get in one day, in one conversation. It's very painful. And it's not just about me, but it's happening, you know, to many of my now friends, you know, who have been victims or are victims and are advocates now. We have a movie, I don't know if you guys have seen it, it's called The Guardians. And I suggest that you stream that movie or purchase that DVD and watch what happened in Las Vegas, Nevada to the elderly community there with their court system. Did anybody see that movie yet? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching it. And please, if everyone could, good, great. That's what we're dealing with nationwide. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm Richard Calhoun.
Mr.
I'd like to add one thing. If you're protecting the consumer, why is it okay with this Bureau to put people that are conserved under a professional fiduciary in an unlicensed facility? That's where Mrs. Carter's mother went. That's where other cases in L.A. are going. Why don't they have to be in a licensed facility? There's no regulation when you put a person in a house and don't have anybody there. There's group homes all over the state being run by professional fiduciaries, and this Bureau is okay with it. And when we turn in complaints, it comes back, it's not a violation against the license. Why is putting a person in an unlicensed facility not against the license? I can't even hire a contractor that isn't licensed if the cost is over $600. The cost of 1 month care is well over $600. How are you putting these people and warehousing them in unlicensed facilities?
Thank you, Richard. Okay, so we are, I'll go one more. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Laura Holmes, and I first became acquainted with court-appointed conservators in 2014, when one was appointed for both my parents. And just like you've heard already, $2 million is gone. My father died of malnutrition and dehydration while on psychotropic drugs in the 10 months after this conservator, whose name I will not mention, was put into effect. Okay, so I wrote a formal complaint with the Bureau, and I got no response. I got acknowledgement that my complaint was received, but no one did anything. No one called me. I called many times. Finally, when I got a person, I was told, well, there's only 1.5 people for all of California to deal with the, Conservators Bureau. Then the next time I was told, well, if you're in the courts, they'll take care of it. So here we have the conservator still conserving my mother. And when I make a complaint against her, my visitation was pretty much terminated. I got to see my mother's last year of life, 336 days. I did not get to see her, and she was holding on till I got there. She died 6 days after I saw her. I was not allowed to take a picture of her. I had to sit there with an extra paid caregiver, who wasn't even a caregiver, breathing down my neck for an hour and a half. That's all I got in my mother's last year of life. And I came to you guys for help, and I came to complain. So what actions do you take when you get a complaint about a conservator?
I'd like to follow up with that. Wendy Hatch? Can
Actually-
you explain the procedure?
Because this item is regarding the legislature, and I understand,
Yeah.
the comments that were made. Maybe that can be addressed maybe in your statistical report. Okay.
Later, okay. So we're going to study it later. Okay. Yes.
I have a question. I have a court date coming up June the 4th where the conservator has decided to resign as the trustee, successor trustee. and also reinstate my father back as trustor of his trust. But what she said was she did not want to provide any accounting for the beneficiaries or for the court filing. So that's kind of, strange that she does not want to provide, that kind of documentation that would, of course, that you see what she was spending and where she spent it. And so can you guys do something about that, please? We need that
Would be
accounting.
happy to take a further look at that. If we want to discuss the complaint specifics after the hearing, I'd be happy to talk to
Okay,
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we are at an item number 9. Rebecca, please present the Bureau updates.
Thank you. So if you want to follow along in the handout, we have both licensing statistics and complaint statistics. For licensing, so this is the charts represent the time between the start of the fiscal year, July 1st of 2018, through April 30th of 2019. So these numbers are reflective of April 30th. We have 54 new licensees, 747 active licensees, 1,105 total licensees, and that's from the beginning of the Bureau's inception, and 100 new applications. For our complaint statistics, so since the start of the fiscal year, we've initiated 4 cases with the Attorney General's office. We have issued 14 citations. We have received 99 complaints. We've closed 66 complaints. We have 52 complaints pending, and the average days to close a complaint/investigation is 125 days. So since our last meeting in January, Angie has been crisscrossing the state in terms of for outreach events. We were at a annual Senior and Veteran Fraud Prevention Fair in Reading on March 5th. PFAX Conference on May 1st through 3rd, that was in Anaheim. Annual Senior Services and Fraud Prevention Fair in Wairika, that was on May 8th, and a Senior Health Fair in Citrus Heights on May 16th. And we don't have anything upcoming, but of course, if there are events that you want the Bureau to be either to attend or at least to be aware of, please send us an email. It's always a good way to get a hold of us. So our newsletter, The Guardian, went out in February, and it was distributed on our interested parties list. If you missed it, you can find it at the Bureau's website. And we're currently putting together our next newsletter, which will hopefully go out this summer. And if any members of the committee want to submit an article for the newsletter or have a suggestion on the content, please contact me at your convenience.
Okay. Any comment from the committee members?
Kathleen Thompson, the number of new licensees, 54, is that up or down, or is that consistent from other periods?
It's about accurate. It's usually around 80 a year of of fiscal year,
Right.
from July 1st through June 30th, so it's pretty close.
So we're kind of on track there. The cases, AG cases initiated, have any of those been resolved, and if so, how?
I don't have that data with me right now.
Okay. And then just the last comment, it's nice to see you hitting all of California. It seems like you hit Northern and Southern California, and that's nice to see.
We have to thank Angie for that.
Yeah.
She's our rock.
Because we had been very Northern California-centric, so it's nice to see that happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment?
Richard Calhoun, I'd like to point out that I think the slides that you have on your website in the minutes and also, or in the meeting agenda and also here is misleading. The public has no idea. It says through April 30th. They have no idea it's your fiscal year. You need to say July 1st, 2018 through April 30th, 2019. And then when we're talking about that, what also throws it off is the total number of licensees, 11,005 issued. You haven't issued 11,005 licenses during the fiscal year. That's your entire history, but yet it's on this chart where every other data point is for the fiscal year. So there needs to be an asterisk, there needs to be some indication, because when you look at your data makes no sense. And I'm a data person. I can figure out what it is, but your average person can't.
Okay.
Linda Kincaid, Coalition for Elder and Disability Rights. We've submitted a number of complaints, and on one in particular, we were asked for more evidence. And what we provided were court documents, petitions signed under penalty of perjury, declarations signed under penalty of perjury, and those documents very clearly established perjury, signed under penalty of perjury, contained perjury, false imprisonment, isolation, mental abuse, financial abuse. And I'm looking here at Business and Professions Code 6584D. Fraud and dishonesty are issues. A license under this chapter may be suspended, revoked, denied, or other disciplinary action may be imposed for one of the following causes: fraud, dishonesty, and corruption. And, you know, we showed in documents sworn testimony to the court. And the letter that I got back in response was the Bureau's investigation found insufficient evidence of a violation of the rules, regulations, or statutes governing the practice of a professional fiduciary in California. So I would like some clarification on which part of what we submitted was insufficient. Do documents from the court, petitions signed under penalty of perjury, declarations signed under penalty of perjury, essentially sworn testimony to the court, is that insufficient evidence for the PFB to assess? Or are the allegations of fraud, perjury, elder abuse, are those not violations against the license? So I would like some clarification here on which of the standards did we not meet of those two?
Okay, so I can't talk about a particular complaint at this point in time. Is this,
I'm saying in general, is sworn testimony to the court considered sufficient evidence?
Fred Cheney, DCA counsel, and I appreciate the comment, but I think the information that you are asking for is privileged information, because releasing the information to the public as to what's considered sufficient to trigger either like a more thorough investigation or prosecution, that's something that if that gets out, that could undermine the Bureau's ability to further investigate cases and prosecute them. So I'm recommending that, again, not provide that information.
You're a public entity funded with public money. I pay your salaries. You're withholding information about how you do your jobs?
Well, we don't draw any funds from the general fund. Our budget is all from fees paid by fiduciaries. So, but still, that doesn't change that we can't divulge our investigatory tactics.
Thank you for clarifying that how you do your investigations and how you draw conclusions is a black box. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. So now we are at item number 10. Rebecca, please present the status of the Bureau's proposed rulemakings.
Thank you. So these 4 proposed regulations are currently in the pre-review with the Department of Consumer Affairs. The first and third bullets are retired and inactive license designation, and our advertising regulations have been placed on a temporary hold for now, as our legal unit is working hard to move the other 2 regulations first. The second bullet and the fourth bullet, which are our client notification regulation, as Ms. Hatchett asked about earlier, and our implementation of AB 2138 respectively. As you may recall, AB 2138 requires all the boards and the bureaus under the department, so some 40 some programs to codify the criteria for professional denial of a license. So promulgating these regulations has been a big task for the department, but I'm hopeful that we could move back to working on PFB's other regulations soon enough. And as always, we always are checking in with the department on the status of our regulations. And as we do, I'll be sure to keep the advisory committee apprised.
Thank you. Any comment from the committee members? Any public comments? Thank you, Rebecca. So now we are at item number 11. Rebecca, please, would you please start the discussion of future rule-making proposals?
So this agenda item reflects a request from the public at our last meeting. We were asked to review our regulations to see if there are ways that we can improve consumer protections. And so before we open it up to public comment, I wanted to ask the advisory committees if they had any suggestions.
Wendy Hatch, I have a couple questions and concerns. Starting with section 4406 under definitions. The very last sentence on the page, where you're classifying us as court-appointed guardians, a principal when the fiduciary is acting as under durable power of attorney, and a beneficiary when the fiduciary is acting as trustee. What does your term of beneficiary mean? Because we can it encompass the original trustor? And then it doesn't classify anything about the personal representatives under this act that I
So
think we should include.
A better definition?
Yes.
Or a clearer definition?
To include the trustor, beneficiary / trustor, when the fiduciary is acting as a trustee, and then we also need to add in personal representative.
We have several sections since the personal representative was just added to the law January 1st that we're working with. Thank you for that. But yeah, we have several different sections of that.
And then under Article 3, in Section 4440, I see that you have the fiduciary management course taken at Cal State Fullerton Extended Program. Have we expanded any other university, like University of, is it Riverside or Redlands, to the list? And do they have a certified program?
Yes, Riverside is on the website, but it has not been changed on the regulations.
Okay, so how do we get it onto the regulations, or is it?
So it's part of the regulation process. No, that's fine. So the section right before this one, she did the proposed regulations. We have 4 that we're working on right now. So that was kind of the point, I believe, of this whole exercise, is to identify what things need to be amended. And then we would start the process of amending those regulations, adding or deleting as needed.
Okay. And then under Section 4442, continuing education requirements, under 4B, you have at least 2 hours of continuing education credit each year for ethics for the fiduciary. Are we going to expand on any of the D&I or diversity and inclusion studies or education?
I think there was a bill last year that was held. So I know that there may be an effort by the legislature to include that, but I haven't gotten any intel on that happening this year or next.
Can we put it for the regulatory review for the Bureau to look at, to expand, or can we only go by legislation?
Regulations are meant to clarify what a statute what statute says. So if the statute is broad enough where that would allow the Bureau to pursue regulations to include that category of regulations, that's certainly something to pursue. But I don't know the statute on top of my head, so I don't know if it's.
We'd have to study it a little bit further to see if that's something we would already be authorized to do under statute. And then if not, then it would need to be a statutory change.
Okay. Then my next. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry.
We do accept courses if somebody requests approval. And because the list of approved providers that we have. They approve their own courses. If a course is approved by that provider and it includes diversity, we do accept those courses. For instance, I know that PFAC has had some diversity courses at their conference, and those have been accepted as credit.
Okay.
So we do accept them. It's just not specifically written out in the law and regulation at this point.
Okay. I'm still getting my feet wet here. So. Okay, the next one is section 4444, approved education courses, and thank you. You list the fiduciary's responsibility of the estate management or fiduciary's responsibility of the person for at least one of the subject topics specific in the previous section. There's a lot of continuing ed offered for the professional fiduciary for practice management. Is that going to be enveloped into allowing practice management courses to be defined in this too, then?
It's kind of the same answer as before. I mean, if the law, like she said, the statute would have to be specific, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but to say you have to have this many, you have of practice management. But we do accept practice management courses because they're related to the subject topics that are required.
There's nothing that prevents licensees from taking those kind of courses and for us to accept those kind of courses. It's just not mandated at this point.
Okay. And then just to add on to that, section E, where you, on the same category, you list conservatorship, guardianship, trust administration, durable power of attorney, and to add on. Sorry, thank you. My next question is in section 4446, the approved educated providers. And under B3 on page 6, an education provider offering courses approved by the California State Bar for continuing education. Could we hone that in a little bit for continuing education through a probate section instead of being so broad that if I attend a family law section course, I can use it for my continuing ed? Could we just maybe hone it down?
We can look at that as a recommendation.
Again, on terminology on page 8, section 4470, general principles, A3, the relationship to the beneficiary / trustor when acting as a trustee. I know I'm bent on this little thing. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure.
Do you mind repeating that section, please?
Okay, on page 8, Article 4, Code of Ethics, Section 4470, under General Principles, A3, A4.
Okay.
It was brought up earlier that when the licensee relationship to the beneficiary / trustor, when acting as a trustee, to maybe broaden that definition. The only reason why I'm saying that is when we take over sometimes and the original trustor is still alive, yes, they're a beneficiary, but the remainder beneficiaries aren't entitled to receive the benefit. So if we could say beneficiary / trustor, to include it, to encompass our care for them. Okay. And then, when it comes to renewing our license, on page 13, section 4542, number A5, it says the names of the licensees' current conservatees and wards will be put on our application. But in the application itself, it just basically says, any new conservatorships, guardianships, trusts, or other estate administration cases that you have been appointed by the court since the date of your last report. So looking at these regulations, it looks like, oh, we have to provide you with a list every year, but in the application, it just hones it down.
Okay.
And that's the same thing with number 7. And then going on to page 14. ongoing reporting duties at 45, 44, 3B. I didn't report the annual statement. When we're filling this out, and we have 15 days to reply to you, or for the special requests? So I guess if I can recall my question on that, is like when we get appointed on for 15 days, or if we get appointed on a conservatorship, it looks like this one is explaining that we have to report it to you within 15 days?
I'm sorry, are you asking to maybe like clarify the regulation?
Yeah.
Is that, okay, all right. I
Sounds
just want to
clear.
know what the question, what the proposal is then.
What section was that again?
Page 14, section 4544, ongoing reporting duties, section 3, or number 3, and it's encompassing B.
Sorry, I don't have a copy of it, so you're referring to pages. I don't know
Oh,
what, what page things they're on. Okay, so clarify.
Yeah. And then, okay, the next question we covered when we did the budget. And section 4604, citation factors, A1, says the good or bad faith exhibited by the cited person. Do we give citations for good behavior?
I mean, do you mean, okay, here's the thing, right, and this is first time, but right now, the agenda item is, for future rulemaking proposals, which could include adding new regulations or
Okay.
revising the existing regulations if they're not clear.
Okay.
But this is, we can't, that's what the request is, right? Okay,
So just
all right.
asking to
But
clarify that.
I believe that she's asking for clarification unless I'm wrong.
That's,
but-
that's what I thought, I just want to, just for the record, okay, thank you.
That specific section, though, citation factors, those are factors that we consider when determining the amount of the fee. So it's not, we're not giving them a citation for being good. It's right? Yeah.
Any
Yes.
additional comment?
Nope.
No, thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Any public comment?
Richard Calhoun, as I understand the current issue is we're discussing your rulemaking, we're not discussing reviewing laws. So on rulemaking, I'd like to make a few suggestions. I would think it would be a rule, you ask how many dollars the conservator, the professional fiduciary has under their control. How about asking the number of cases they have? Aren't human beings more important than the dollars and cents? And if a professional fiduciary has 1,000 cases, I sure would like to know about that more than whether he has $1 billion under his management. So I think adding on the number of cases the person has onto the application would be worthwhile. I also believe that it's very clear from the renewal statement that the primary business address has to be a physical address. Yet after requesting 18 public record requests from your bureau, the vast majority are UPS stores. A UPS store is not a physical address where the primary business is concerning. As a real estate broker, I know it has to be a physical address. It has to be your home if you work out of your home. If you run an office space, it has to be wherever you spend the majority of your time doing your professional work. This bureau should have the same rule. I think we also need to look at things like, and I don't know if this is really a rule, but there's a fair number of professional fiduciaries out there that charge the same amount of time for doing the same task, regardless on how long it takes them. For example, one professional fiduciary charges 45 minutes for every check they write. I think 45 minutes to write a check when they're using a program called Quicken is a little over the top. That causes other problems that we'll get into a little bit later. What happens when a professional fiduciary loses tax documents? Time after time after time, I'm seeing these professional fiduciaries charging the same amount of time every single year locating missing tax documents. I don't believe it, but yet they do it. There doesn't appear to be a rule against it. It goes on and on. I think that's all. Continuing education. That's another thing. Real estate broker, we have to do 45 hours, I think it is, every 44 years, so it's roughly the same amount of time. But when I fill out my renewal license, I have to put down like a 16-digit number for every single course I took. My understanding is you just take them, their signature, under penalty of perjury, which isn't a crime against the license, apparently, according to what the Bureau said previously, as that they took it, and then you randomly audit people, but the ones you randomly audit, you find violations on a regular basis. Why aren't you doing the same thing? Licensee, tell you exactly what course. That was part of the renewal process. You're supposed to be protecting the consumer. Again, I think you're protecting the licensee.
Hi, Venus Gist again. Someone had mentioned diversity, and just kind of touching on what Richard said with education. I know there was court documents that Michelle had put, that the conservator had noted that she placed my mother culturally appropriately. And I mean, just looking at that, she put her in a facility, and I guess assumed because she's a Black American woman that she needed to go into this particular facility because it was mostly Black clients in there. When she didn't even look at my mother's medical needs or, other things that could have helped my mother to thrive better, being in a higher standard of care. And then she said something like, and they braid hair there. That was in the documents too. So that was her assumption. So maybe some education for sure around, culture and diversity and what's best for the client. And just the accountability, in regards to what their choices are. I mean, I had a facility in Castro Valley that was small, quaint. It was owned by a Romanian family who had been in the business for years. It had things that I really liked, like homemade food for my mother, good quality of food, which the facility that the conservator chose did not. And she didn't go with that facility. And it was $1,000 cheaper than the facility she chose. So just that oversight and no accountability that these fiduciary conservators have, who is watching them? And maybe some education around that would really help. Thank you.
Linda Kincaid, Coalition for Elder and Disability Rights. Last year, there was a substantial improvement in the rules. I understand a fiduciary, a licensee, can no longer charge for time spent related to a complaint investigation. That is a step forward. Another step forward that would be much bigger and a lot more beneficial would be to no longer allow fiduciaries to charge for litigation against the client or against the client's family. I was reading documents on a case in LA. The conservator in her documents to the court stated that most of her time on the case has been spent in litigation against the client's family. So most of her billings have been because of litigating against the client's family. And the estate since 2015 has been depleted by about $1 million. That's $1 million out of this man's estate that are gone because the conservative values litigating against the family above caring for her client. And I think that's something that rulemaking should take a look at.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So now we are on the item number 12. Angela, what items have you recorded from our meeting today as future agenda items?
So I had a couple of specific items. One was that we would report on, that our legislative office would report on a list of specified, I forget exactly how, the specified items in SB 496 to be clearer on the statistical report, which I'll need to go back and listen to the exact things on our tape of adding in there, being clear on the dates that it was from what date to what date, and on the total licensees, the asterisk for, so we'll take a look at that. Those are the two items that I have specific to add to next agenda.
Okay,
Is there anything I missed?
No? Hmm? Okay. Are there any other item from a committee member would like to add? Hmm? Is there any public comment?
Richard Calhoun. I believe there's pending items from the November and January meeting that we discussed that were supposed to be on future agenda items and that are not on this agenda, and we were explained that it wouldn't happen all in one meeting, which we understand, but maybe we should keep a list of all these agenda items and keep them on there so we don't lose track, because I'm going to have to go back and listen to the videos from those two meetings to find out where they are, because we don't know what they are. So maybe when they can't get on the next meeting, it gets us a list of a future item. I also do have a few suggestions for future items. And I think I know the answer to this, but confidentiality, it's really frustrating as trying to rein in your professional licensees that the Bureau under state law cannot give out case names. It's in the statute, I agree with that, but I assume this Bureau would not take an active role on making information that's already public record. I can go to the courthouse and get that information. I just can't come to the Bureau and get that same information, and that makes no sense. I think if you're really protecting the consumer, you should be able to release public information. And I understand right now you can't, so it's not a rule, it's legislation, and I forgot the code section because I wasn't planning on doing it. I think it's 6254 under the Business and Professions Code. So I'd like to address that. I'd also like to, and I should, if I can approach and hand out this, can I do that? That is a graph of one professional fiduciary, and I've done this for two. This is a graph of one person that will remain nameless that practices in 5 counties. This is looking at one of those 5 counties, and only about 80% of the cases in that one county. So I have about 20% of the cases in one county to go and 4 more counties. And if you notice at the bottom, if you hold it like that, it makes the most sense. It starts at 12 hours. That means that billable day, calendar days where the professional fiduciary billed for 12 billable hours isn't even on the chart. In the consulting industry, most people say if you build about 70% of your workday as billable hours, you've done a good job because you have dinner breaks, you have commute time, you have your 15-minute breaks, you have interruptions that aren't billable. Well, what gets really interesting in this graph is when you go above the black line, they're billing more than 24 hours in a calendar day. So your licensees are either very creative in having a time warp machine where they can fit in more than 24 hours in a day, because I can't do that. I don't know anyone that can do that. And I've looked at 2, and both are over 24 hours. I brought this one, they only build 33 hours in a day. The other one is 67 and a half hours in one calendar day. I want to know how in the heck you can do that, and that doesn't seem to bother this Bureau. There's a problem. That should be discussed.
Okay, thank you to all. Future meeting dates. So item number 13. The following days have been selected and scheduled for remainders of 2019. If you have any conflict of these days, please contact Angela Quadra. Wednesday, August 14, 2019. Wednesday, November 13, 2019. Any comment from the committee members? Any public comment? Thank you. So item number 14. Rebecca, would you please to open the election for the nomination to serve as chair and vice chair of the Professional Fiduciary Bureau Advisory Committee for the remainders of 2019?
Thank you so much. So before we get into the election, I just wanted to thank our Chair, Hang Lee To, and our Vice Chair, Kathleen Thompson, for serving as leaders for the advisory committee. I really very much appreciate the commitment that you've shown to consumers, and especially for sharing your valuable insight with the Bureau. Okay, so we're on agenda item 14, the election of 2019 committee officers. So nominations are open for the position of chair. Would anybody like to make a nomination?
Kathleen Thompson, I nominate Hangley Toe.
Any other nominations?
I'm,
You just nominated
I would advise that. Turn on your microphone when speaking to one another.
I would like, this is Wendy Hatch, I'd like to nominate Kathleen Thompson, because she's been acting as vice chair, and does it, you just move up, or are
I
you interested?
appreciate that, but for health reasons, I'm going to decline.
Okay.
So, Ms.,
Thank you.
I just wanted to add this piece. Ms. Toe is serving right now in her grace period for her appointment to the committee. So I don't know that, you know, she may be reappointed, she might not be reappointed.
Right.
Well, and if, if she, how will we know that she is reappointed or not reappointed?
it's in the race period. And
Yeah.
like I say, because I've been served on 2 terms. So I think that I want to give it up to the next best candidates and who would like to learn. I mean, I learned so much personally from this, and I appreciate other publics, members, committee members, and also the staff. I appreciate it.
Well, given that, I will accept the nomination for chair.
Okay. So can we,
Is there a second for the nomination of Kathleen Thompson as chair?
I second that nomination, James Moore.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion by the members? Any more discussion by the members? Okay. We'll close the
I think
nominations. Oh,
the public gets to, no?
do we do the public comment
Yeah,
first?
do the public comment first before we
Okay,
vote.
is there any public comment on the nomination of Kathleen Thompson as chair? Okay, so then let's call the roll call. All in favor of electing, we'll do just a voice vote? Is that
Just a
okay?
roll call vote.
Okay. All in favor of electing Kathleen Thompson for chair?
Oh, I thought we were going to
Aye.
do a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's okay. We only do this once a year.
Yes,
so-
it's not smooth.
So the nomination is for Kathleen Thompson to be chair for the remainder of the 2019 year. So I'll take a vote by roll call. Hangley Toe,
Yes.
Wendy Hatch,
Yes.
James Moore,
Yes.
King G is absent, and Kathleen Thompson.
Yes.
So with a majority vote of a quorum of 4, Kathleen Thompson will be our 2019 committee chair.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving on to the position of vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I'm Hang To. I would like to nominate Wendy Hatch to be the vice chair.
There's gotta be a
Kathleen Thompson, I second that.
Thank you.
second. Any discussion by the members? Okay, we'll close the nominations. Is there any public comment about the nomination of Wendy Hatch for vice chair? Hearing nothing, we'll go ahead with a vote. Angie, do you mind?
So this will be for Wendy Hatch as Vice Chair of the committee for the remainder of 2019. Hang Lee Joe,
Yes.
Wendy Hatch,
Yes.
James Moore,
Yes.
King G is absent still, Kathleen Thompson.
Yes?
With 4 votes, Wendy Hatch will be the Vice Chair.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Condolences, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you to you all. Okay, now item number 15, the meeting would be, the committee would like to briefly address the public comment for the items not on the agenda. The public comment for items not on agenda session is a time for the public to comment on items that are not listed on today's agenda. To allow the committee sufficient time to conduct its full schedule of business, public comments will be limited to 2 minutes per piece. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits committee members from discussing or commenting on any matter brought up during public comment for items not on the agenda. Also, committee members are not allowed to take action on any item not on the agenda. If you want the committee to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you may ask the committee to consider placing that issues on the agenda of a future meeting. However, the committee is not obligated to fulfill that request. If you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the Bureau, or if you are about to bring a complaint to the Bureau's attention, please do not discuss the details of your case or complaint. That's because the Bureau's counsel reviews disciplinary cases and is not permit to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative records in the case. The committee strongly asks that you also respect the privacy of the others by not revealing the names and conditions of any individual involved in any cases or complaint. In order to allow the committee sufficient time to conduct its full schedule of business, please do not duplicate or repeat the comments of a previous speaker. At this time, are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee or to offer an agenda item for a future meeting?
Richard Calhoun. We've heard how complaints go on for years, I think 2014, and never resolved, and yet the average response time is in a 100-day range. I have a new complaint. My complaint is emails to the department don't get answered. I sent an email back in February with specific questions. I'm still waiting for a response. Public records only gives you documents. It doesn't answer questions. You know, I am capable of going up the chain of command to get copies of emails up there, but that's absurd. If I as a member of the public, send a reasonable list of questions to an organization that's public, even if you're funded by professional fiduciaries revenue, which I agree you are, I expect an answer. And waiting from February until essentially June is unacceptable.
Linda Kincaid, Coalition for Elder and Disability Rights. We have established that your criteria for discipline are secret, even though you are a public entity and subject to public records request. But since your investigation criteria are secret at the moment, I'd like to refer you back to your mission statement, to protect consumers. And then there's some more, but the first 3 words are to protect consumers. Not to protect fiduciaries, which seems to be what's happening now, but to protect consumers, the clients of your licensees. I would like to suggest that the PFB, I won't say renew, but perhaps establish a focus on your mission statement and perhaps agendize time for discussion of your mission statement and perhaps even discuss time to start implementing your mission statement for the protection of consumers, the clients of your licensees. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laura Holmes, and I am the daughter of victims of a predatory conservator. And I would like to see a little transparency when someone has a complaint, that there's an answer to it. Or if I'm looking up other conservators to see their history, if they've had complaints about them, can't it say they've had complaints by other people? Because it seems they have to do something horrendous to even, be held accountable. So, and I'd like to have answers when I make a complaint. Do you let the conservator know that there's been a complaint? I mean, from what I've found, that they're protected, and there's not enough people maybe working in the office in Sacramento to follow up on complaints. And so how does that help our most vulnerable citizens? I mean, my father gave 47 years of his life as a naval doctor. He did not deserve to be starved to death.
Hello, Venus Gist again, and I also am just concerned about the relationships between the Fiduciary Bureau and the fiduciaries. Like, how often do you meet? Do you know who some of these fiduciaries are? What's the relationship? Are you aware of what their job duties are and how they're performing them? Because, like I said, the oversight and no accountability. And then when we do write in complaints and give specific details and concerns and videos and pictures, there's no response. And we don't know if you're not responding because you're still researching, or you don't want to respond because you don't want to convict these people. You don't want to show them guilty. Sometimes a lot of times, that's how it appears, that no one wants to make them accountable. And sometimes you gotta be fined and disciplined and, fired. It happens to people out in the world, so why do they get away with and they're independent, they're out there working and there's nobody watching them. We've been able to reach out to, thank God, Supervisor Nate Miley stepped up and, heard us and saw the film, the Guardians, and, we're getting people to pay attention who are in, legislature, Senator Wachowski with the bill, SB 303, because one of the things that there was no accountability was the money. Like my parents had a property, a rental property, and the conservator was going after the rental property. And it wasn't equitable. The fees that were owed, you're talking $17,000 in fees you're saying is owed, and then the property's worth $800,000, but yet she wants to sell the property. You're going to sell these elderly people's $800,000 property and go after the tenants. She actually went to the property and threatened the tenants to give her the rent, that the rent needs to be sent to her, not my father anymore, or else she was going to evict them. So that's why I said the accountability of what they're doing and their behavior, who they are as people and human beings. You got to have some heart in this job, especially dealing with elderly people. How do you work with elderly people? It's like children and not care. But it happens. They get abused, they get neglected, and even die at times. So that's our concern, is where's the accountability, to these fiduciaries out here in the world. This work, I look at it as time for, Gandhi work and Martin Luther King work, and because it's time for us to get out there and hit the pavement, grassroots, because people are dying, and that's not okay. And it's all, we sleep at night knowing this. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Hi.
Jamie Lamborn. First, I want to apologize to the public for helping to create this bureau. I sit here and I listen to all of this. It makes me so sick. I go back to my father. And why, if you're supposed to be protecting the consumers from the fiduciaries, why do you have them on your board? They serve nothing but themselves. And until you folks have a personal experience with our local probate system, and that includes the judges, the fiduciaries, and the attorneys, you will not know how it affects a human being. I watched my father die a horrific death, just like these people have already mentioned. I caught the fiduciary in my case transferring my father's home into her name after she sold it to a Russian family. When I confronted her with it, she told me not to go after her, to go after one of your panel members up here, because her attorney uses him more than he does her. And if you don't see what's going on, and if these people here think that they're going to get through to you folks, I have another thing coming, because you folks don't have a friggin' heart. Not one of you have ever experienced the frustration, sleepless nights, the crying, the tears that we have. I think this bureau should be done away with and put some just plain citizens up here who understand what we're going through. Because people don't believe what we tell them, not until they have to experience it personally. And I tell everybody who calls me for advice, do not hire an attorney in Sacramento. For that matter, almost anywhere in the surrounding counties, because they're all in it. They're all after that almighty dollar, and they don't give a shit about anybody's life. And I hope you guys all, I hope you have to go through it. I'm surprised any of you folks can even sleep at night, especially one panel member that I've heard nothing but bad stuff about. Makes me sick.
Okay. Thank you to all. Thank you. So, do we adjourn the meeting now? Okay. So the meeting is adjourned at 11:35. Thank you.